guys, and welcome to Yellingatconcrete. Okay, so obviously I've not been doing anything creation-wise, or at least video creation-wise, which I published out into the world. So why would I come out? Why would I come back? Not come out. Why would I come back and come back with something which is completely unrelated to the stuff I did before? I mean, why even start a podcast? Who's going to want to sit there and listen to 20 minutes, half hour of me chatting? I don't know. So I guess let's find out. As some of you may or may not know, I've been going through some life stuff. Nothing particularly hard. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of the world and how people's lives run and the tragedies which can happen within the world, my life stuff seems really kind of insignificant. But it was significant for me. It was significant enough for me to kind of take stock of my life and think about what I've been doing and how I've been approaching things. And to that end, obviously, I've been creating, because that's how I create content, is through my own suffering and own torturing of myself. I'm not one of those people who can kind of get up in the morning and go, yeah, my life's fantastic. My life's one of those beautiful, wake up, there's roses in the garden and the sun is shining and we are living in perpetual motion of unending bliss. No, that's not my life. That's not how I want my life to be, because then life would be boring. Why would you even think that is a good way to live? Why would you want everything to be easy? If everything's easy, there's no point in doing anything. So, pulling it back to the point, whenever I'm depressed, down, suffering, not really suffering, but as I say, it's just a word which we use, kind of maybe, I don't know, inconvenienced life. Yeah, inconvenienced by life, that's the better way of putting it. Excuse me. If we're inconvenienced by life, I turn to creation, because I'm way more prolific when I'm inconvenienced. I kind of push myself into more creative roles, and my best ideas have come when I've been at a down point within life. And usually I find that those ideas which are created within that time frame are more significant to other people as well, not just myself. It's one of those moments where you can kind of look back at it and go, yeah, you know what, I may have been in a time where life was kind of giving me one, but at the same time, look what I created as a form of expression. If that kind of works round, I guess. But either way, back to the point at hand. I think we're going to be doing this a lot in this podcast, is going back and forth between what I actually wanted to talk about. Excuse me, just pouring a coffee. Sorry, tinkles. Yeah, going back between what we actually wanted to talk about and where my mind is actually at right now. Quick stir. Sorry, probably should have done this before I turned the microphone on. But why to start a podcast? Well, I was looking for a way which was kind of more organic to get ideas out and get expression out, and maybe just ramble to myself and talk to myself. I do that a lot. I do talk to myself a lot, because you get a better answer that way. If you ask yourself questions which are hard, and you ask yourself questions which are, with to do with your life, and you ask them out loud rather than internalizing them, you're much more likely to answer. I don't know why that is, or at least I am. So I do this thing where I wander around my house and I monologue to myself, and I realize that maybe I could be recording all that stuff, because essentially that's all a podcast is. That's all anyone creates with a podcast, is to give some form of expression into the world. Obviously people have vendettas and meaning and subject matter to take on, and I thought, why not take on just, life itself and the idea of creativity and dealing with issues. So this podcast really doesn't really represent anything in terms of subject matter. It doesn't really push the envelope. Well, it might push the envelope. It doesn't really broach one specific subject. The idea behind it is just to give me a place to vent. Well, not even vent, just to talk. And whether it's heard or not is kind of a null point when it comes to creation. So we're kind of in an impasse of wanting to have content out there, creating content. I mean, let's think about the last few months. The last couple of months. I've been making so much stuff. so much stuff. I've been drifting from project to project, and that is something which I think everyone should do. I mean, I meet so many people who tell me they can't finish a project. They can't get to the end of the project and go, yeah, you know what? That's a finished title. That's something which I can put out into the world. I mean, most of the stuff I create, I don't even put out into the world. I just create it for the sake of creating it, because I have to be making something, because I have to be doing something, because I have to be fighting entropy. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate that. I think they see it as, if they don't finish something, if they don't release it to the public, and they don't take it to the world, and they don't get recognition for it, then they are failing. And that is not true in any way, shape, or form. This is why when you look at kind of great artists and you look at the classic artists, regardless of genre, you know, Kubrick or Picasso, it doesn't really matter. They're both kind of at that higher level of legendary within their field, and they're still discovering work which was made by, I mean, you know, think of recently. If you want to take like a modern day idea of a legendary artist who has stopped creating work because they have passed on, think of Prince. Prince is one of those people who has his back catalogue of work which is just stored away, never intended to be seen by the world, and yet they will release that content after he is gone, because obviously there's a cash cow which you need to milk, and you can't not milk the cash cow. I mean, the calcium of money needs to feed the machine. But he already created all these things. He probably didn't even finish these things. He probably just put them away in some large box or large vault, you know, and that was fine, because every so often he released something. And so you're creating work, and you don't need to think there's an end point to everything. You don't need to sit there and go, yes, I'm drawing this, it has to be pushed out into the world. If I don't push out into the world, then it's not good. Because you'll never know unless you push out into the world. But I'm just saying, you don't need to push out into the world. I think I'm talking in circles here. I really do. So, getting back to the point at hand, I wanted to create dialogue. And this dialogue comes in the form of dialogue. So, whilst we're kind of on the subject of creation and running around, I was taking stock of how YouTube works, how I've been working through YouTube, and it was apparent to me that there was nothing of use there within my old creations, so I felt it was time for some new creations. Most of the old content's locked down, some of it's unlisted, but that's just a period. It's a time frame within the creative process, and I think everybody has that. I mean, I love doing this thing where I have a folder under my bed which is filled with old artwork. It's filled with work which I created through college. It's filled with work which I created in university. And every so often I go back through it and I throw something out. I'll look through it and I'll think, yeah, you know, this is good, this is good, this is good. This isn't great. I don't like this anymore. And I throw it out. I save some percentile of that work. I say if there was 5 paintings, I'd probably save, and I decided I didn't like the entire series, didn't like the concept, I'd save a painting from it to remember that painting, because my memory's terrible. But you move out. You move on with it. You recycle it. I've just painted over 4 canvases which I used to work on, because there's no point holding on to it, because creation is organic. Creation is something which you push through, it evolves, and you lead yourself down a line of saying, you know what, there's got to be a time where this work changes. It's a representation of the time, but you got to have that work changes. And I think, I mean, in a way, that's what popular culture, or pop art at least, was robbed of, was that this idea that art can change, because in some sense their art cannot change. Once it's out there, once it's in the gallery, once it's famous, that art cannot change. It has the context of the time, but you can't go back and modify it. Whereas for the unknown artist, or for the people who create in their spare time, you can always do that. You can always go back and rework an idea, because why not? So where does this leave us in terms of creation? It leaves us in a place where you can kind of sit there and say, it doesn't really matter what you create, but at the same time, everything matters. Which I know is seems like oxymoronic language. It leaves us in a position where I don't think anyone should be afraid of creating. I've spoken to friends before, and I've spoken to quite a few friends about this actually, who create for the idea of money, which obviously we do. We all want to get paid at some point, but they create for the idea of money, and knocked the microphone. And they kind of look at it as they've typecast themselves. They can only do one subject matter. They can only do one idea. And it's something which I've never been comfortable with. As I say, I create when I want to create. I go out, I do everything, I touch everything. I've got fingers in a lot of pies when it comes to the creative world. I'm drawing, I'm writing, I'm now apparently recording my voice, which doesn't really seem like creation, but at the same time, we're creating a document. We're creating these little tidbits. And I feel like there's a lot of fear from people to challenge their own concepts, to challenge their own ideas, to sit down and say, you know what, I create this type of art, but maybe I don't have to create this type of art. Maybe, just maybe, I can twist it. And they worry because they have these fan bases which obviously expect a certain type of work, but you can adjust that. Why not do something anonymous? Why not do something which you never release? Why not create something which you can kind of hold to your chest and say, this is mine, this is how I work, and this was something which I wanted to make, rather than thinking, oh, you know what, I'm gonna have to draw this next anime drawing, I'm gonna have to go out and I'm gonna make this illustration, or I've got to record this type of video. Just get out there and make something which you actually want to create, because after a while, if your content creation is being controlled by the expectation, then it's not your content anymore. If you're doing it out of default and you're doing it because, that brings in the money, fair enough. But if you do not feel like you can go out and make something which is yours because you wanted to make it, then you're not really fulfilling your own creative ideas. At least that's my opinion. I mean, you may not agree. Feel free to comment. But I hate to see that. I hate to see that people can be trapped by their own creative process. I think all creation, in some aspects, stems from some sort of inconvenience, some sort of suffer. Whether scale of suffering is minute, even stubbing your toe, down to the end of personal loss. I think every creative act is usually an expression of loss. I don't think anyone can kind of sit there and say, I'm completely content with my life, I'm going to create something. I mean, maybe I guess that's probably just me. I guess there are people who probably sit there and think, I can make something really happy. I could make something which really speaks to the world about my happiness. But I'm not a very braggadocio person, so the idea of expressing my own happiness I find kind of egocentric. And yet the idea of expressing angst I don't find egocentric. That's an unusual thought. Maybe we'll discuss that next time. But getting back to the point at hand once more. I think creation, it needs to fit. I think it's easier to relate to work, which is creating out of hardship. Because you're looking for that connection. That's what people use art for. That's what people use all content for. Is they're looking for that connection. They're looking for that thing to either make them laugh or to bring them down. And it's okay to be brought down by work. It's okay to look at work and think, I can relate to this. And that is depressing. Because that's what it was created for. It was created in order for you to have that connection. It was created in order for you to say, you know what? My life isn't perfect. And neither is their life. And maybe we should use that to do something about it. But as I say, I digress. I'm going to be making these bi-weekly. Some of them will be independent podcasts, such as this. Others will not. Others will be involving guests, and people I bring on to chat about the world in which we live. Because who wants to listen to me all the time? And these people will probably just be people I know. They'll probably just be people who I find on the street eating tacos and bring them into my home and say, you know what, why do you like tacos? Well, maybe I like tacos because the guacamole was raised here and then hunted down and put into this taco burrito. And that will be basically the structure of those conversations. But until that point, we will be living in a world where I will say, hey, here's something to talk about. And after all, you know, we're all going through things. We're all wanting someone to listen to and someone who can relate to. And I'm not saying you relate to me. I'm just saying maybe your life's not as bad as you think it is. Maybe it is. And that's okay. I don't even know what point I'm trying to make here. All I'm saying is that we're putting ideas out there. I'm creating some stuff. That's what I came here to do. That's what we will continue to do because that's how we live our lives. And after all, we're just yelling at concrete, aren't we? No, that was the worst sign I've ever. That was terrible. I wanted to end on something emphatic, and that was not emphatic at all, is it? I guess what I'm saying is I'm creating out of the necessity of creation. I'm attempting to express myself in as many formats as possible, and this is how I'm doing it. And I encourage you to do it too. Just pick up a pen, pick up a pad, go to town on it. Write something down, draw something, pick up a mic recorder, and just start recording yourself, because why not? Do something creative. Go out there and express your opinion into the world in a way which you can feel proud of. And don't even put it into the world. Just put it into a box in your room and go, you know what? That's a drawing full of, mischievous beavers. But I still have that box of mischievous beavers because I wanted to draw mischievous beavers. And why wouldn't you want to draw mischievous beavers? They are fantastic. Just get out there and create something which helps you manage how you're creating. Because I think everyone secretly has that creation streak. Whether they know how to utilize it or not is neither here nor there. And after all, we're sitting here, we're talking, we're chatting, nobody's even listening to this. So, as I say, we're just yelling at concrete. I hope you join us in 2 weeks' time. I hope you sign up and maybe subscribe and enjoy what we're saying here. And I'll talk to you guys later.